Well, John the Baptist is one of these core and central figures of this season of Advent. He is the precursor, the forerunner of Jesus Christ. He is the one sent by God to prepare the way. As we hear in the prophet Isaiah, he is that voice of one crying out in the desert, make straight the paths for the coming of the Lord. He was in the line of the prophets, and his diet and his attire all helped to convey that. And of course, prophets were sent to often proclaim messages of hope, but also messages that were very difficult for at least some to hear. And John's message was no different, because that message of preparation was a message of repentance, of acknowledging one's sins and returning to the Lord. John's message is every bit as necessary for us today as it was in preparing for Jesus to enter into his public ministry. We need to hear that very same message of repentance. We need to hear this message of preparation, of making straight the path for the coming of the Lord. These Advent days are such amazing days for us. Our scriptures are so rich with images of hope and of peace. But they challenge us, these Advent days, to do some very hard work. And I think it's important for us to carve out that time for reflection, to really look into our lives and examine what are those things that are keeping us from Christ. What are those things that block that path, that make the road crooked or curvy or difficult? What are those roadblocks in our lives? And undoubtedly our sin needs to be right at the top of that list. What is the sin in our lives? How are we addressing that sin? And are we bringing that to the sacrament of reconciliation or confession with that firm intention of change, of conversion of heart, that truly we are going to work at doing things differently, doing things better? It isn't just the place to dump the sins so we can go back and do them all over again. This is about conversion, a change of heart. That's that sense of preparation. So, looking at the sin in our lives, but also the rest of life. Because I think a lot of times there can be other things that are going on that make it difficult or may block us from really being open to Christ, from really surrendering to his love, his mercy, his will in our lives. That could be even the world that we live in. Political divisions, fear of the pandemic, uncertainty, frustrations. All of those things can build up blocks along the way. And we're called to come to Christ. We're called to tear down those things and to have that sense of trust, that sense of faith, that sense of surrender to our God. We look at those walls that we build up. We look at those blocks that are in the way. Those things that make the path curvy and difficult as it lies before us. Now, John the Baptist wasn't about bringing the glory to himself. He was such a man of humility. And he always pointed to Christ. His mission was to lead to Christ. And ultimately his sight, his vision always was on the Christ. And in our journey, this Advent time of preparation, the message for us is the same. We not only prepare our hearts and our lives, but we need to keep our sights focused on Christ. Isaiah presents that great image of comfort, that image of the Good Shepherd. That's where we find our peace, our hope, our comfort is in Jesus Christ. As we keep our sights focused on him, as we are drawn ever nearer to him, as he draws nearer to us, our hearts and our lives find that hope. We find that comfort. We find that peace. Keep focused on Christ in these Advent days as we prepare for his coming, and work to tear down those walls and those barriers, those things that block us from truly embracing Christ, from truly following him and knowing his comfort and his peace.